We're live. Good afternoon, Frank. It is already, I think, the 22nd of August, Sunday afternoon, a few minutes after 2 Pacific, coming to you from my bedroom office, and it's good to see you. I'm going to have to start training with you guys on Sundays, wherever you're at, and get some time on the mats. I'm feeling great. You know, I was in the hospital 2 weeks ago. With an adverse systemic reaction to the J&J vaccine, and that was an eye opener for me. And let me just say a couple of things, and then I'm just going to throw it over to you. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So, you know, this year, I would say one of the things that has happened to me talking to you every week is I recognize that I know a lot of information, but the struggle is in implementing and doing it. And so, you know, I feel like I know a lot about like what I need to do to take care of myself. The hard part is the implementation. It's like 20% is just knowing the information. 80% is putting it into action. And that's really, really tough. Okay. But part of my laziness, I would say, is getting deeper into living and having better nutrition and focusing on things. So, you know, since I got out of the hospital, I had weighed in the week before at 272, but that's like in the afternoon, you know, all clothes on and just maybe phone in my pocket, everything. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That's way more than I want to be. And I've been having other medical issues, not to go in here, but suffice to say, I'm off all medications at this point. I feel great, except my back is hurting me still because I have a bulging disc and some issues with my spine, and then I have some hip issues. But for the most part, I've realized okay, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get more painful as I go on. And so I addressed this first by, like, I went to the library and I just pulled down as many keto and cookbooks that I could find so I can start learning the process of doing all this. And it led me to a point where I'm like, I am fascinated now with just getting rid of the unhealthy kind of bad inflammation in my body. You know, I learned that like 1 gram of glucose holds like 9 grams of water. And so whenever I eliminated all, like, no alcohol, you know, nothing with simple carbohydrates or, you know, any kind of carbohydrates in it, you know, my target is like 0 to 20 grams of carbs a day. And, you know, following that kind of approach. And now I want to kind of get more into, you know, implementing more stuff. Like you said, the Epsom salt bath a couple weeks back. And I've been doing that quite regularly. Not every night, but it is really making a big impact on me. Like my magnesium levels coming in, fantastic. These micronutrients. So I'm really, really excited to learn more from you today about some of the micronutrients, some of the techniques and practices. You know, the good inflammation is like, oh, you know, I have an injury, and so, you know, there's a lot of swelling there and stuff's going on, to the bad inflammation, which is, you know, diet or nutrition based. So I wanted to throw it open to you for the rest of the time that we have here. I've given you a list of questions earlier today, and I just want you to just tear into this if you don't mind, because I think for any jiu-jitsu practitioner, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, knowing some of these things is crucial. And then the implementation that I said, it's so hard to do it, but at least getting that 20% going and then saying, I've got to walk my talk.
Well, I think, you know, and I had some of your questions from earlier, so we're going to address, you know, inflammation in the body. We'll talk a little bit about fasting. We can talk about carbs. We can talk about sugar. We can talk about, you know, sort of surviving. This is the pain game, right? You know, when you're last on these mats, as long as I have, 36 years and counting, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of injuries, there's a lot of inflammation, there's a lot of swelling. So we talk about coping strategies because I've got some different ideas than a lot of people do. I think one of the problems for people is they don't know who to believe. There's so many different sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you read 10 different books, you've got 10 different experts telling you 10 different things. And then people sort of have this monkey mind. It's like, well, they throw their hands in the air like, well, what do I do? Frank's telling me Epsom salt baths. This guru is telling me this. My favorite podcaster has a guest on who's telling me this. And then people don't know who or what to believe. I'm going to just tell you now, I want to lay out some credentials here for people, because I think when I talk about nutrition and health and wellness, some people just think that it's just, I'm just a guy that's healthy that decided to do that. That's not the case. I mean, I have pretty dang good credentials to talk about health and wellness. For number one, I started exercising faithfully, religiously, committedly at age 13. I was doing sports almost every day before that as a kid, but I really started committing and running and lifting weights and everything when I was 13. So I've been doing this for 36 years and counting now. I started wrestling at age 14. And I was the guy for a long time. People like, Frank's the healthiest eater we know. Like, that guy's living the cleanest. Like, in high school, I wasn't drinking. Everybody else was drinking, underage drinking, terrible thing. Everybody was doing it. I wasn't doing it. I was going to people's houses on weekends. You'd go, the parents would be away. Everybody else would raid the booze. They would look for the alcohol. The parents are away and they'd go and they'd look for alcohol stashes. I would literally go in their refrigerator and look for food. That was my Friday, Saturday nights. Like, we go to a party, I would raid my friend's parents' refrigerator for good food, for healthy food. So anyway, I just got into the University of North Carolina, the School
Congratulations.
of Public Health there, which is the number 2 ranked school in the country for public health. Public health has taken center stage now with a lot of things going on, including COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours down this rabbit hole of nutrition, health and wellness, cardiovascular system. I've sampled way before any of this was in vogue, vegan, vegetarian, high fat, what we would call keto, eating a lot of meat. I've done it all. You name how you can eat it, I've done it all. A pound of cookies in a sitting, I've done it. A whole large pizza in one sitting, I've done it. There's nobody out there who's eating a certain way to have it done. McDonald's, two fish fillets, large soda, large fries. I've done it all.
Oh my!
It's rare that I see the person who's eating the gallons of ice cream at night.
That was you? Come on! Yeah, What's the heaviest you've ever been?
167, but I look good at 167. I actually look better at 167 than I do now at like it's fluctuating between 133, 132, and 137, 138.
So
I
tiny.
actually look better at 67 because my face is a little fattier, which actually makes me look better. My neck is big. My neck gets big. My butt gets really big.
I don't need to know this.
Women like me a lot when I get.
I don't need to know that.
Yeah,
I don't need to know that.
I used to get compliments.
Oh my goodness! I'm blushing over here. That's too much.
Just walking around in jeans. Anyway, that's another story.
Oh my God, that's too much.
167 at the University of Maryland. So anyway, now I told you the other day I had a guy at a brown belt. He's a doctor, and he thought he was being cute, and he's like, "Frank, what are you doing? You're so skinny. You look like you got HIV." Haha. It's just like, it's such a lame, cliche-ish thing to say, but I get that now. I get that from, my ex-wife talks about how skinny I am, and other people.
My glasses fogged up. I laugh so much.
Yeah, I've dated women that, Anyway, I get that a lot. There's a reason for that, which we'll talk about some other time. So my point is, and I've had the blood clots.
Yeah.
Blood clots in my legs that were.
That's huge.
Not just career-threatening, but life-threatening above the knee. I got the titanium plate in the neck. I got the 27-inch scar down the right leg. I've had a bypass surgery at age 19. I was the youngest known bypass surgery recipient in the U.S.
Whoa, I didn't know this. Surgeon. Well, I don't remember you telling me this.
And I've had the broken hands, the broken noses, the dislocated shoulders. So I'm saying all of this to people to say, it's one thing for a doctor And I try to find the smartest doctors and scientists I can. I dig into metadata. I'm on NIH.gov. I'm on PubMed. And I try to devour information on health, wellness, nutrition, inflammation, fasting, etc. Right? Peak performance, mindset. I've been in this stuff for years, for decades now, okay? And I want people to understand, though, that I think what differentiates me from the doctors and scientists is that I'm living it, though. Like, a lot of what they do is, as much as we need smart doctors and scientists, we need great research. Don't forget that a lot of it is petri dish stuff. It's not. It's and most of the studies that are done, there's so many gaps and flaws, and there's compliance issues. So, like, a lot of times they're asking people about their diet. They're basing the study on questionnaires to people. People lie. People had ice cream for dinner and they'll lie and say, I'm 100% vegan. They're not there watching what what this person in the study, they're not watching their every move, right? So there's compliance issues, there's honesty issues, there's a lot of gaps in studies. Where my experience comes in is not only am I trying to devour a lot of the studies, trying to find the smartest doctors and scientists, and a lot of times the mainstream stuff is 20 years behind the Jedis. You find the Jedis, they're like 20 years ahead of the mainstream. If you're looking in the mainstream, you're going to be late. You're never going to find the cutting edge, front edge stuff. The mainstream is the last to know. So I'm trying to find the people that are the future. They're the future now. And the mainstream will catch up to them in 10, 15, 20 years. And what I can say is, for me, I've lived a lot of this stuff. I've spent a lot of time in the orthopedics. I've spent a lot of time watching people lose weight, cut weight. I've lost weight for over 300 matches. I know all the ways not to cut weight. So when, my buddy who's a lawyer said, Frank, I could get you admitted into to a court of law as a nutrition expert, as a weight loss expert, based on all the weight cuts you
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, and remember, I was writing a nutrition column for the UFC when I was there, so I was interviewing all the fighters. What are you eating? Blah blah blah. Mac Danzig, who was a vegan at a time when not many pro athletes were, and interviewing my boy Mike Dolce a number of times, and Vitor Belfort, Dom Cruz, Uriah Faber. So anyway, I want people to know I'm not just this guy who's sitting on a couch and now we have a little podcast going, and I'm just like, let me give you my flimsy opinion. This is like in the trenches, working for the UFC, doing nutrition columns, burying yourself in metadata studies on PubMed, NIH.gov, living in doctors' offices with injuries, going through surgeries, living it, knowing all the ways not to do it. Today I was we trained jiu-jitsu today, great training, getting ready for the IBJJF Masters No-Gi Worlds, which will be in Texas. I suspect they have it in Texas because if another wave of COVID and Delta variant comes, Texas is the last place that would cancel their event. They probably strategically chose Texas. I'm going to go out on a stretch and say that. I was training with a kid today. He did the, if you're grappling for 10 years, you're going to have this injury. You're going to always have neck issues. You're going to have finger issues, and you're going to yank that thumb back. You're going to get that thumb bend back really nasty. It is, for about 30 seconds to a minute, or even a couple of minutes, it's one of the most painful injuries you can get. It sucks. It's like, when you start tearing that little tendon there in the thumb, it sucks. And then for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, anything that hits it's terrible. So I'm sitting there, I'm showing, this is like a 23, 24-year-old kid, very good, young, promising grappler, and I'm showing him how to tape that. How do you tape that? How do you support that? I'm that guy. What I'm trying to explain to you is, if I were you, don't be stubborn. Put stock in what I'm about to tell you. Okay, I'm sorry.
You are the you're the BJJ equivalent. You're the jiu-jitsu equivalent of your cut man.
Best way to pop your shoulder back in, I know it. Because I know the multiple ways. Dr. Dave Watson of the UFC has only done one interview talking about the job he does. He's only done one interview publicly talking about the job that he does with the Nevada Athletic Commission. He's been doing it 19 years, almost 20 years now, for boxing and UFC. He's only interviewed with one person talking about his craft, and that person was me. We did that for usatoday.com. Best technique I've ever seen. He's, when a UFC fighter, when their shoulder comes out of the socket, and there's been a few of them, Dave Watson is the guy usually, if the trainers don't know what they're doing, Dave Watson's the guy that goes in there and pops it back in. And he's got a masterful, best technique I've ever seen. So my point is, I'm a guy that kind of you pick up a lot of things in 36 years of doing this. And you get blood clots and you get titanium plates and broken hands and broken noses and broken this and ankles, that you start learning what in the hell works. So I'm just saying to people out there, please pay attention. I don't want this to be wasted on you. I don't care. I'm not saying this is the only way. I'm just saying this stuff works. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm telling you what I have seen work. This is based on, in the trenches, what I've seen work. Okay?
Okay.
So when we start talking about, let's go first and foremost with inflammation. I told you. So, and everybody knows by now that, you can't get a plant to grow without stress. Everybody has to have stress, right? Muscles grow with stress. I mean, we all grow via stress, right? You're comfortable being out of our comfort zone. The thing is, there's a thing called, I would call it the right amount of stress. And that's different for everybody. The right amount of stress will grow you. The wrong amount of stress will burn you out or make you want to, whatever, make you want to quit or whatever, right? So too much stress will get you hurt, like seriously hurt. It's the right amount of stress, incremental stress, that's going to build us, right? So with inflammation, when you have an injury, even if you have something long-term like what you're describing with the spine, which I've had those. I got a titanium plate in the neck. I've had back issues. I've had discs, whatever. I've had where my back locked up on me before. I've had that too. I'm a small guy, usually one of the smallest in the gym. When you look at inflammation, it's a multi-pronged thing. So what sorts of thing are anti-inflammation? Let's just go through a list of them. Stretching, yoga, right? Stretching in the right ways, the right stretches can be anti-inflammatory. Why? Because what happens to muscle tissue is it tightens up. Muscle tissue, when muscles tighten, that's when you get spasms, that's when you get pain. That's when all of the nerves get crushed by, if I made a fist here and this all tightened up and it constricted, every nerve in there is getting pain. So forget about the disc, just even the nerves. You get a lot of muscle tension, right? Varying degrees of muscle tension, person's going to have more pain. So stretching is going to alleviate and roll that out. Massage can do that too, right? So massage is a method of that, of breaking up inflammation, breaking up scar tissue. But stretching is a way to alleviate the tension, alleviate the pressure on the nerves, alleviate pressure on the disc. So we're talking about massage, which is usually cost prohibitive unless you have one of those Theraguns, which some people love. You can go Theragun. A lot of people, very few people can afford in America. If you were in China, massages are pretty cheap there. I know people are going to make a joke about that, probably at this point, but you got Theraguns, you've got self-massage, you've got balls, you've got foam rollers. If you could, be Tom Brady and have somebody massage your arm 5 days a week, oh my goodness, that would do wonders, right? But then these other levels you have stretching, right? Yoga and other stretches, you got that. You've got, as I mentioned, the Epsom salt baths, 20 minutes. I would recommend them. If you have an acute injury, you could even do them 5 times a week. A normal athlete, you might do them 2 or 3 times a week. You can do as much as you want. They're going to help your sleep. They're very anti-inflammatory. Magnesium oil, you can buy it at Whole Foods. You can buy it online, Amazon.com. It's going to cost you about $12, $13. You can get it at Sprouts. It's fantastic. It's basically a magnesium salt. You're going to spray it on there, and it is, in my experience, it's going to make the inflammation go down. It's something you should have in your cabinet. It's a little flaky, so you don't want to, you'll look like like you have a drug addiction, or I'm not trying to be cute, but like a crack, somebody who's got like white, who's all flaked up. Sometimes in you see drug addicts and things like that. You got to be careful with it. You want to put it on you for 15, 20 minutes, maybe a couple times a day, and then wash it off because it collects like very flaky. But the other thing that nobody talks about is that diets are inflammatory. What you were alluding to with sugars and carbs. And a carb is a de facto sugar. I want to repeat that. A carbohydrate is a de facto sugar. De facto being fancy legal word, meaning it's right there knocking on the door of being a sugar. That is what. So when people are eating, now I am not in the camp, Noah. So a lot of foods people are eating are inflammatory. So if you're a person that's recovering from injury, your diet becomes huge. If you're an older athlete and you want to recover between workouts because you want to still train 5 times a week, if you want, your nutrition becomes huge. So because the recovery is linked to the inflammation. More inflammation, more lactic acid is a longer recovery for the older athlete, for the injured athlete. So the diet becomes huge. If, as a starting point, as you mentioned, regardless of whether or not you're injured, even if you're not injured, even if you don't have a lot of inflammation, probably the biggest killer in the last 100 years, we're talking about viruses. I'm here to tell you, based on my research, and I think I'm 100% right, sugar is the biggest killer in the last 100 years. Nothing's killed more people than sugar in developed countries. Sugar is the top killer. It's a slow killer. It's just like a lot of drug addicts. A lot of drug addicts, when people have a severe drug addiction, that is a form of suicide to me. Severe drug addiction is it's death by 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 cuts. That person that has a severe drug addiction, and I'm not making light of it, it's a horrible thing. I've had brothers, I've had relatives. It's a serious thing. It's a sad thing to see. It is somebody slowly killing themselves, and they know it, and they don't know how to stop it. And it's tragic. Guess what? What if I told you sugar, and the experts that I trust, number one culprit in heart disease and in cardiovascular disease, and even in Alzheimer's, number one culprit is sugar. That is from all of the research that I have done and the experts I trust the most, it is sugar. Not just to mention all the inflammation, not just to mention if you want your arthritis to be worse, sugar, right?
Oh, what happened?
Sugar's arthritis, right? Arthritis, go with a lot of sugar. You want more gout, more sugar. You want to accelerate Alzheimer's, okay? Sugar. Because based on the research I've done, most of what Alzheimer's is just restricted blood flow to the brain, by the way. You can do your own research on that. It's restricted blood flow, all the spider veins and all. It's restricted blood flow, restricted oxygen, restricted nutrients to the brain. It is a form of atherosclerosis on the brain, okay? And there's plenty of smart people, alternative docs, and other people who are saying it's probably going to come out in the next 15, 20 years, and probably people will catch up. But anyway, what's not disputed, biggest killer in the last 100 years has been sugar. It's just been a silent killer. It's an addiction. Do you know the pleasure sensations in the brain that light up with all the endorphins? It's the same exact region as a heroin addict. It's the same exact region as a heroin addict. It's lighting up. If I honestly believe, and I've heard people say, to get people off sugar is like getting people off heroin. That's why it has a hold on so many people. It's got a grip. You try to get somebody to lower their sugar, even if they lower their sugar, you said earlier, even when they lower their sugar, they can't lower their carbs. Even when people say, I'm gonna declare war, I won't drink sodas. When you ask them to start cutting back on the carbs, they can't, because the carb's a de facto sugar. Carb is a freaking de facto sugar. So then they go to other places, right? They go to the fruit juices. They go to eating too much pasta, too much rice, too much whatever, which it's not as bad as, it's the fructose in sugar that's the worst. There's glucose and fructose, right? It's the fructose that goes straight to the liver that's the most damning and devastating. But so in any event, the sugar, there's nothing wrong with carbohydrates. No, so this is where we're going to get a little bit nuanced. There's nothing wrong with carbohydrates. What there is something wrong with is the standard American diet, what they call the SAD diet. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with the quantities we eat. There's something wrong with what they do, how they refine the carbohydrates, right? That's why fasting is so wonderful, because what fasting does, it's the same thing. If you have a drug addict, okay? I'm not an expert on drug addicts, but I've known a lot of them. I've known a lot of people, including relatives, that were drug addicts, and I've had a lot of conversations. And I can tell you this based on every conversation I've ever had with a drug addict. The only way they stop using is they have to go through withdrawal. You're not going to meet any serious drug addict, whether they're an alcoholic, whether they're heroin, whether they're meth, whether they're coke. There is a withdrawal period. Nobody gets spared the withdrawal period. Nobody. There's nobody you know that's been in remission of their addiction for 20 years that didn't go through the withdrawal, right? When you're an addict, you have to go through withdrawal. Guess what fasting is to the person who wants to be healthier? It's part of that withdrawal. It's part of the process. If you want to alleviate sugar cravings, if nobody's going to master, dude, my willpower and discipline is in the top 0.01.
You're a 1%er
yes,
inside of 1%.
I
Yes.
am well inside the 1%.
You are. I know. I've seen what you eat.
Say otherwise. And I can tell you, I still love sugar. I still love the carbs. I still love them. And I got the discipline of disciplines. So when I am like, still like, oh my God, okay. But the fasting is key for starting to try to manage that addiction. You may never master it. Most people may not. But to start winning, even to win at half the time, right? If you win at half the time, you add years to your life, you reduce the inflammation, you reduce the arthritis, you reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's, you reduce the risk of cancers because cancer proliferates in a sugar acidic environment. Fact. If you want to make a forest fire or cancer, just pump sugar into the body. So even if you were to take in 50% less of the sugar and the refined crappy carbs, because we do have to make a distinction. Nobody should eliminate carbs for the rest of their life. It's not practical, and it's the wrong battle. I can tell you that based on having, what's the problem is what they've done to the carbohydrates in refining them, what they've done with glyphosate, what they've done with pesticides, which makes it produce a different insulin response. So with the way that we manufacture and refine these carbohydrates here, we've perverted probably 90% of them. I'm making a rough estimate. We've perverted them, and in perverting them, when they hit the bloodstream and when the pancreas produces insulin, it's hitting it at a way higher rate, in a rate that's more akin to sugar. Holy shit, right? Especially when you're eating a carb and you don't have a fiber with it, because a fiber will buffer the insulin response. Okay, so fiber will buffer that. So if you were to take in a fructose or a glucose or a carb in combination with a fiber, especially if you have a lot of the fiber, it's going to buffer the insulin response, which is key. Now, you've heard a term called insulin resistance. Okay, most people hear that word and they're like, insulin resistance, I'm hearing that, that's not a good thing. They're like, what in the hell? You could hear 100 people talk about insulin resistance, and most people still won't know what the hell the doctor's saying. Like, insulin resistance, I guess that just means that my insulin's too high. Well, insulin resistance really means, and what's really happening, Noah, we have a nation of alarming diabetes. Even more alarming is that most people, they're calling them pre-diabetic, aren't even diagnosed. And pre-diabetic basically means your ass is diabetic. You're just, the bar has it. So when you have the diabetes, your risk of Alzheimer's, your risk of dementia, your risk of cardiovascular, your risk of stroke, your immune system not working right. You talk about immunocompromised. Oh my God, you don't want this. You do not want this. The first place to start is like what you're saying. You start with sleep. We always talk about sleep here.
Yeah.
But then you got to declare war on sugar. And I'm not going to tell you that that's easy, because declaring war, sugar is like the hardest opponent most of us will ever face. Like, it really, like, if you're born and you grow up eating like most Americans, like I did, whatever, it's a lifelong war. Like, nobody's going to win that war like every day of it. It's hard, right? But even if you could improve by 50%, 60%, you're mindful. And like you said, you have a number. You're shooting for 20 grams or less of just the straight sugar. By the way, sugar is not a naturally occurring. People think sugar is a naturally occurring. Sugar is not naturally occurring. They took it from molasses. They crystallize it. It doesn't naturally occur. It does not naturally occur. The sugar is not like a plant that's bleeding sugar. It's been refined like flowers. Flowers have been refined, and when the flower has been refined, it's going to produce a different insulin response. And that insulin response, the problem with, like, say, an insulin resistance is it's almost like your body has these reserves. Eventually your body doesn't, it's your system is so overloaded with insulin, it's almost like your insulin factory doesn't pump the same. And insulin's a hormone. The problem also is that with a lot of these sugars, you start disrupting signals in the body, signals that are necessary for other hormones. For instance, ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone, right? So these sugars and the fake foods, ghrelin doesn't even register. Just doesn't register. The signal that's supposed to tell you, hey buddy, I'm full, doesn't register. So the sugar in a lot of the sad American diet is so crappy that the signalings are disrupted. And then when the signalings are disrupted, the hormones are disrupted. Now you got the hormones for your metabolism, the hormones for your sleep, the hormones for this, the hormones for that. And most people, by the time they're 35, 40, they're completely out of whack. It's not just sleep. Everybody thinks, oh, my sleep is what. It doesn't work that way. So in any event, when somebody says to me, I have a serious injury, they should be tightening up their diet anyway, but they should go way cleaner on the diet. They should go with more sleep. They should load up on the Epsom salt baths. They should put magnesium oil in the cabinet. And if you want to get massages and Theraguns and foam rollers and all that too, you can do that. The other thing you're going to want to watch is your hydration, because your hydration is your flush. And whenever you have an injury too, you need a good flush. Just like toxins in the body, toxins accumulate. So if you're underhydrated, you're going to have more inflammation. Your injuries are going to have more pain when you're underhydrated. Especially as an athlete, cardinal sin. You should never be underhydrated. So in any event, this is what I think. I think that when we have these discussions about sugar and why should I eat healthier, people have to figure out a reason, whatever that why is. And it's not going to be usually a tournament or something for somebody. I'm always amazed, Noah, how many people that I meet that are like, Frank, life sucks, people suck, I don't want to live past 75. They have an aunt or somebody that has Alzheimer's or dementia, or people are dying around them, and they're like, I don't want to be 75 and on prescription meds, and the world sucks. I'm scared of what the world will look like at 75, right? I'm scared of what the world will look. So many people.
Fair enough. It's a fair enough comment, right?
Yes.
It's fair enough. I mean, it's tough times.
It's alarming to me how frequently I come across this one. It's alarming. I come across it all the time, which is, now let's roll back the layers of that. Say, okay, this person is saying 75 is going to suck. The world is going to hell in a handbasket because they're seeing the headlines. They're scared of what technology is going to look like. They're scared of what AI. They're scared of, whatever. If there's nuclear Armageddon, whatever, civil war, whatever. People are scared. There's so much in their heads. There's so many negative headlines. There's viruses. People are dying around them. People are depressed around them. Maybe they have a financial problem. So many people are up to their neck, and they're like, Frank, you're telling me all this great stuff about food. I don't know if I want to be 75 in this country. I don't know if I want to be. They've already got diabetes, or they've already got health problems, right? And so one of the battles we have to win is we have to think that, like, there has to be the premise that life is precious, that life is valuable, even if it's hard, even if there's suffering. Everybody has to because if not, Noah, then it's too easy to just be like, well, it's too easy to let ourselves go and just be like, well, who cares if I eat this double cheeseburger and this big gulp, whatever. I don't want to be 75, Frank. I don't even know if I want to be 65. I don't care when it's my time. Yeah.
Can I jump in here?
It's my time, it's my time. Right. This is a huge issue when you roto-rooter the psychology. It's not.
This is it.
You don't need to waste time finding their why. You need to hear comments like this, and you're like, wait, this premise will defeat them. This assumption that they're making, it will defeat them. They won't even look for a stronger why. They'll be defeated by this premise. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm glad, because you brought this. Now you've walked it back to what I consider like a circuit breaker matter. All This is, like with the power coming into your home, if you go into your breaker box and you shut those breakers off, it's all over. There's nothing happening. And you've went to the heart of the matter, which is your why. Why do we even talk about doing this? I was lying in the hospital bed, and they were talking to me about labs, and the doctors at the VA, they were internists, and so internists, to them, the human body is just a puzzle, and they're just trying to rule out methodically all that was going wrong with me to get to what was going on. But they made a comment to me, and they were concerned about my liver because it had some fat on it, and that was the first time I ever heard about what's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I never, I thought, oh, fatty liver disease, that's for alcoholics. And I'm not drinking, my 1 to 2 glasses of wine a couple of times a week, nowhere near, what I would consider. But, if you add in my iced sweet tea, if you add in the pasta, the bread, we're going right there. And I'm a big boy. Well, I started thinking, this podcast is affecting me in deep ways. And one of the things you said several weeks ago, was we're curious. We're curious. You and I are friends, and we're on this path. So we have to take first as a premise that if you train jiu-jitsu at a basic level, you seek to get better. You seek to get better. And so the circuit breaker, the circuit box issue of the why has to do with longevity, because there's a really,
wait, Noah, and this is what's interesting is what I was saying. It's actually reverse engineering the why. I'm telling the why not. People are telling me why not. In other words, Frank, this is why not. This is why I don't care as much about doing all of this right now and living a long time and making these changes. This is my why not. And so instead of me sitting there going in a circle and trying to find their why, what I've learned is let's find their why not. Let's find the premise or the assumption that is defeating them, that is blocking and preventing a stronger why. Because if I can't get them to agree that 75 could be pretty freaking awesome and that they're capable of it, they're never going to try to buy in on the diet. They're always going to be yo-yo dieters. They're never going to dial in.
They don't have that commitment.
So sometimes what you'll find, Noah, this is what's weird. To know thyself is like self-mastery. That's very hard. Most people don't know themselves. To know thyself. What you'll find with most people is, instead of always trying to find the why, which the why is great, but if you try to find the why not, the why nots are usually very quick. You can find the why nots really quick. Like what's the dominant record or dialogue or program that's playing in their head? You can find that one quickly. Like the defeatist assumptions, the assumptions of defeat. Yeah. You can find those very quick. And sometimes instead of trying to waste time on the why, which we can get to later or over time, it's like, okay, here's 3 premises or 3 assumptions that are core and that are replaying over and over in this person's head. And until we can attack those and get rid of those, we're not going to change a damn thing. They're going to still be drinking the colas, eating the, and
pizza.
And deep down, yeah. So, there was by the way, my sister-in-law is, I wanted to, at the top of the podcast to dedicate this to her, because she's dying. Literally, I could get any day now. I'm going to get a message that she's about 51.
Oh,
and
so young.
She died. She's stage 4 cancer, and she's in she just got moved to a hospice. And so I want to dedicate this to Leela and my brother Tony. She's just been an amazing.
I'm sorry
woman.
to hear this.
So anyway, I want to dedicate. There's a I listen to the guy Dr. Joseph Murray quite a bit, and Ernest Holmes. These are 2 of the thought leaders of way back. And these guys are early 1900s, but they would say things like, give the world your best, and the world will give you its best, right? You give the world your, and this stuff is hokey to some people, or it's cliche-ish, but you remember I said in wrestling, there's an old adage, the next points are mine. The best wrestlers have a mindset that, like, even if you scored, the next points are mine. Even if you scored, you're still going to lose.
Okay.
I'm just going to turn it up. A winner thinks like that. A winner thinks it's just hard. It's hard to defeat them. They have sort of this never say die-ness in them. And if people don't have that in them, it's going to be hard to really eat super clean for a sustained period of time, be more, you mentioned. So this is very important. Like, we've got to get people to buy in, that, like, we've got to get them to buy in and, like, have more fight in them, more fighting spirit, like that life is worth living, that you can win, that you can be super healthy, that even if the world seems like it's going to hell in a handbasket, you can live a good life. People don't believe these things. They're not optimists, glass half full. It's hard. My niece turned 21 today. She was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, probably one of the most natural jiu-jitsu athletes I ever coached. I mean, I've never seen anybody pick up jiu-jitsu quicker. And she doesn't train currently, which hurts me. But anyway, she turned 21.
It happens. Let it go.
She turned 21. She got a job at a place here called True Fusion. True Fusion here in Las Vegas. They're very popular, like, yoga studios. And she's she loves it. She loves it because, just like jiu-jitsu, the reason she loves it is there's so many places where you go where people hate their job, they're overworked. You go to, like, a yoga studio, especially like True Fusion, it's a self-improvement. People are coming through those doors, they're in the self-improvement. You go to jiu-jitsu, the people that are staying, they're into growth. They have a growth mindset. They have a self-improvement mindset. And it's just, even just that, not even just the jiu-jitsu skills you're learning, just being around people that are wanting to progress, wanting to grow, want to put the work in, devoted to self-improvement, whether you're on a yoga mat. Like, these environments are not a dime a dozen. They're not. There's a lot of places where, like, as I hear some of my friends, people suck. They want to tell me that people suck. Most people, if they can stab you in the back, will stab you in the back. There's a lot of people that walk around with this assumption now, and that's just one of the beautiful things about where we are. If you're a jiu-jitsu athlete, I would say the jiu-jitsu athlete is more likely to want to improve their diet than the regular person. I would say that the faithful yogi is more likely to be like, I'm going to be a more mindful eater. Just being in certain areas of self-improvement, you're probably more likely to be surrounded by people that are like, hey, let's live healthier. I'm not saying they're going to be the holy grail of health, but you're just more likely to come across people that are going to be in the positive thinking, that are going to be in the healthy living, and then that can rub off on you. So I would say for some people out there too, if you're losing the battle and you think, I can't win it myself, Frank, I can't win it. Hey, Frank, I can't afford someone like you. I can't afford it. Then I would say, again, go sign up for a jiu-jitsu school. Go sign up for a yoga place. Sign up for places that are a little more communal. The problem with a regular gym in general is regular gyms, especially now with COVID, they're not as communal. Jiu-jitsu is communal. You're going to start talking to people. You're going to make friends. Yoga mats tend to be communal. People tend to be, find hobbies. Cyclists, you find these cyclists around town, they pretty soon they start to congregate. Tennis clubs, people start to, tennis, you go to tennis clubs, people start, golf. Golf is a communal sport. Certain sports that are very communal.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids soccer, your kid plays soccer. I guarantee you that you're talking to other parents at the soccer game. It's communal, right?
Yep.
So some people.
Well, it's socially distanced for now.
Yeah.
It's been gross. Fine. Yeah.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is, put yourself in environments
mm-hmm.
where people are living healthier, where it can rub off on you, where that becomes your peer group. And that automatically, for a lot of people over time, will make you put down the croissant, put down the ice cream, put down the sodas, And if you can't give up the sodas, then if you're drinking 5, let's try to get you to 2. If you're eating 5 candy bars, a day, let's get you to 1. I mean, these are things. But Noah, the final thing is that, so these things, these inflammatory markers in the body, say there are people that say, look, the hallmark of disease, the number one hallmark is inflammation.
Yeah.
there's no disease that any doctors are looking at that doesn't have. The problem that's dangerous is that when you have all the sugars and all the chemicals and the pesticides and the glyphosate, which is basically an antibiotic, when you have this bombardment, a lot of what's happening are micro inflammations that people don't see it in their 20s, but then they hit their 30s and then it catches up. So these insults, these micro inflammations are happening. They're happening under the radar, and they become ticking time bombs in our body. And so what I would just encourage people to do is, like, if you do go doing more fasting, okay, if you can do it, and you can just start with a 12-hour fast, right? Pretty easy. Sleep 7 hours, first 5 hours, you don't eat, okay? 12-hour fast. Don't go crazy right now, because it takes time to work up. Sometimes it takes years to work up to really good fasting. And fasting meaning, you can drink water, right? You just don't take in any sugar, don't take any, you could drink even sometimes lemon water. Some people would do that, but just water or lemon water. But just by starting that, over time, you're still going to be a sugar addict. You're still going to have sugar cravings, but you're going to be taking in less sugar. That is a starting point for cleaning out your body, self-repair, autophagy, which you wanted to talk about. It's a starting point for self-repair, your body feeding off of its reserve fuels and fat. But it's also a starting point to say, look, I want to be less addicted to the sugar thing. You're still going to be a sugar addict, but I want to be less addicted. I want to control my sugar cravings more. Fasting. You want less inflammation in your body? Fasting. You want more mind clarity? You want more better energy levels? Fasting.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, I mean, I can go on and on and on about this stuff, but none of us, we're all white belts in something. But I'm just saying, I've lived this. I've made all the mistakes. I eat late night like I shouldn't. But I will say this. When I'm eating 11 o'clock at night, I'm eating like really damn healthy food. I just shouldn't be eating it. But when I do, I'm at least like, hey, I'm at least eating really damn healthy. And I exercise, and I'm committed. So a guy like me has a little wiggle to get away with some things. A lot of people out there, if you don't want to do it for you, when you talk about your why, find somebody you love that you want to stick around for. Whether it's a kid, whether it's somebody that needs you, whatever, humanity. You have something to give, a message for humanity, books to write, whatever. Find people outside of you. I mean, I love this. The yogis did do this. A lot of yogis, when I used to go to yoga class back in 2003, I was going. And before class, we would devote the class to somebody. They'd say, pick somebody. Noah, pick. You close your eyes, you'd set your intentions, and you'd pick somebody you devote that practice to. And so when I would get into poses where, there are poses where things would hurt, and, you're running your own race, but I want to stay in that. And I would think about my friend Dana, who had her comas, or my friend Steven, who was in his wheelchairs. And I devoted this practice today to them. So I would squeeze a little more out of me. It was a little stronger why, because if I had just devoted to me, I'm like, well, I could let myself down today. I mean, this hurts. But I would go a little further for them, because I was like, wait, I dedicated this to them. I can give a little more effort for them. They deserve that.
What you're talking about there is a fundamental concept of whenever you stop living for yourself and you live for your others. And, in yoga, the Sanskrit, it's called Sangha, but it's the community. When you live for someone else, that is the bridge to keeping you alive. Whenever and as I said several weeks ago, you talked about longevity, and that message to me it's been sitting on me and melting my resistance to things in my life. And part of that resistance, Frank, is what's so tied up in my own self-image and my own ego is that I don't know. I cannot see myself as a light heavyweight. I cannot see myself between 175 and 185. That is a different Noah. That's 90 pounds. If I can do the math right, that's like 90 pounds from when I weighed in.
You cannot achieve what you're not aiming for.
I don't know who that person is.
Right.
I don't know that person. There's no more Big Man Green.
Aim for the moon. Aim for the moon, and you'll fall among the stars. You gotta shoot for the moon, even if you get the 185 ideal Noah, and even if we got 195.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of progress.
So I've been using an app called Fastic, Fastic, Fastic
Uh-huh.
for tracking my fasting. And another one that I haven't done too much work with on the micro and macro nutrients is called Chronometer without the H, just CRO chronometer. And so I'm playing around with those apps and kind of figuring it out how to work with them. I never really heard this term called autophagy, but in fastic, to me, I can, if I've eaten in the last 2 days, I can go for another 2 days. If I've
It's
eaten,
true.
it's weird for me. I can fast.
Yep.
It's easy. I don't know why, but it's like I hit that
No.
high
Well,
gear.
it's because the body. So for the first, I think it's the first like 16 to 18 hours, the body is sitting there begging for its sugar fix and its glucose. It's been trained. It's on the glucose. So what people don't tell us is they're like, the body is programmed to run off of glucose. Body has two tracks of energy it will run off of. It has the glucose fructose track, and you can even say it's like a sucrose, but it has that track and it has the fat track. And the reason that we've been brainwashed for all these years to believe that our bodies and our brains are meant to run off of glucose and sugar is a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's just what we demonized fat. So it was like, of course, we trained our bodies to run off of that. So since we're sugar addicts and we've trained our bodies to run off of this glucogen and the fructoses, it's like, okay, the first 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours, the body is like freaking out, and you can even get irritable, it's withdrawal. The body's
Hangry.
like, where
Yeah.
in the hell is my glucose? Where's my
Where's
sugar?
my
Where's
sugar
my
fix?
carbs?
Yeah.
It's freaking out. Then it starts to realize, just like in the old days, going back anthropologically, hunter-gatherer days when you had to go out and hunt your stuff, pick your stuff, collect your stuff, you had to go out and work for it. There were times you didn't get to eat. You were not guaranteed a meal at 8 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m.
And a
That
snack
was
in
not,
between.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the body adapts. The body's like, okay, I realize I'm not getting those berries or those nuts or whatever. I got plenty of reserves in the fat. I'm gonna go feed off that fat, and it just goes off of that track. And the fat is a way better fuel. It's an ocean of fuel compared to, like, you got a river. Your glucose is a river. It's a quick source.
More
It's
like a
not gonna you
ditch.
you
It's
can't
like a
run ultra
ditch.
marathon. You can't run ultra marathons off of that glucose unless you're constantly feeding the fire. There, you could run ultra marathons off. People off, give them water, and they can do that off their fat reserves. It's fantastic fuel. It's a better fuel.
Makes sense.
So autophagy, the guy who I think popularized, was a Japanese guy, won a Nobel. I think believe he won a Nobel Prize for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's for what I've learned
But
so far. Yeah.
it's fascinating because it's based on the notion, like, even like with atherosclerosis and plaque. What's fascinating about it is that the body, kind of like, I mean, and pardon my French here, but like fertilizer, crap, manure, right? What do we call? I mean, pardon my French, but the shit, right? If it has a use in nature. Like, some of the best fertilizer, some of the best soil you can have has
Compost.
manure. Yeah, it has
Compost is
manure. It's
awesome.
crazy. Yeah, this intelligence, this whatever, this infinite intelligence or this cosmic or God intelligence that makes the world go round and has created all the rules,
Hmm.
it it wastes nothing. Nothing goes to, everything in nature has its place, or it becomes food for something else, or it becomes, the death of one thing becomes the opportunity of other things, right?
So you're talking
So
about the autophagy process here.
that's autophagy. Autophagy is
Autophagy.
the body's wasting nothing. Even the plaques that have built up in your body, everything, the fats, everything that's toxic, it's saying, not me now. I'll take care of it. I'll go in and take care of it. Spring
Recycling, huh?
cleaning for the cell, recycling, self repair,
Yeah.
self maintenance, like a cat. A cat. If you've ever seen cats clean themselves, they sit there and they know what to do.
Yeah.
You don't need, they don't need you to run them through the bathtub or whatever.
Not like the
They don't need
dog.
it.
The
They
dog's a
know what to
mess.
do. This
Yeah.
this is the thing, Noah, and this is where a lot of people. This is where a fundamental disagreement with the people that are the health experts or doctors and scientists.
Okay.
There's two different schools of thought. One is you have scientists and doctors that are like, look, the body is a mess. Whoever created it messed up. There's so many flaws with it. Genetics are flawed or whatever. Then you have people like me that are the other extreme who are like, no, the body's intelligence is amazing. If you get cut, it heals you. Your body knows what to do. It is so smart. It's smarter than any medicine you can give it. It's smarter than any needle. We believe in the power of the body's intelligence if it's properly fueled. And so autophagy to me is like the perfect example of like, man, if we do our part, autophagy, we fast and we can do that. The autophagy goes in and just works wonders. The body is so smart and says, I know what to do. I know where to clean. I got you. I know how to handle this inflammation. I know how to handle this injury. But we usually never give it time to do its thing. We usually are bombarding it. We're underhydrated. We've got tons of chemicals. We've got antibiotics coming into us. We've got tons of prescription meds. We're stressed out of our minds. We've overwhelmed our immune system. We've got our immune system fighting 10 battles at once. And then it's not so smart and it's not so great because we're not giving it the weaponry. We're not giving it the tools. But when you give it the tools, again, this is a theory, but I subscribe to this theory, which is the human body knows, just the same as if you cut your finger, your body's smart. You don't have to work on ways, your body is going to work on healing that cut from that moment. You could do something stupid, get an infection, whatever, but your body's going to do most of that work. You're going to keep it clean, whatever, but your body's going to do most of the work to bring that finger back.
It's going to make it happen.
Just doesn't. Yeah. Your brain tells you when you got to go to the bathroom. You don't have to there's nothing special you did to your body to say, hey, tell me when I have to go to the bathroom, or tell me when, you did when you're tired. There's nothing. Your body is got all these signals that just go, and you're like, where'd that even come from? Who programmed that in me? It just is. So someone like me says, hey, the body in general is wired to be magnificent. It's super intelligent. It's smarter than any medication. But if you're not doing your part, it's going to fail you. The immune system's going to fail you. Your recovery from injury is going to fail you. If you're not taking care of yourself and meeting your immune system halfway, it's not going to work.
So our job is to cut the carbs, cut the crap, and fast. 18. What's the longest you've ever fasted? What is optimum? When is the Fastic app, has a little warning on there. It says don't fast too long, but it says between I think it's either 14 to 18 hours is prime. But what is I got a lot of repair work to do on me. So
it depends on who you're listening to, who your expert is, who your guru is. But I subscribe so far, and I reserve the right to change my mind because I think
you're growing. You're growing.
Smart people change their minds. We think we know one thing now. Nutritional science is only 100 years old, so most of us are even the smartest people are babies at this. We still know very little. So anybody who acts like they know everything, it's no. The smartest people just know more than most everybody else, but we're all babies. The human body is so complex. But right now, today, what I'm subscribing to is that. So, one of the huge benefits of fasting is growth hormone. I mean, your natural growth hormone and testosterone are if you said to me, I naturally want to increase my testosterone and my growth hormone, I mean, sleep is huge in that, fasting's huge in that. And really, you're not going to start getting the benefits of that until, again, based on the experts I trust the most now, you're looking at probably around 18 hours of fasting. Until then, your growth hormones bloop. What they've seen, they haven't studied fasting near as much as we would like. There's a lot more study, but so far there have been studies indicating 18 hours is when that growth hormone bump, it really goes up, exponentially. So for people like me that are trying to age well, longevity is a big thing. I usually am fasting 13 to 15, 13 to 16, but now I'm going to start working my way up. I used to do 24-hour fast when I was wrestling. It wasn't really fasting because it wasn't something I wanted to do. I had to cut weight.
This is cut weight. That's not.
So now to consciously do it and fast, I haven't done a lot of 24-hour water fast. You want water with you. I would never recommend. You got to always, So for most people out there, without giving you advice, I'm just talking about me, because everybody's not ready for certain fast. Fasting is something that really you should do under the guidance of an expert, because we're all different. But for me, I'll work my way up to where I'm doing more 18 hours multiple times a week. I'll do 24 hours. I've heard, so it's said, I haven't done it, but the 72-hour fast with water, again, if you don't know what you're doing, do not do that. But that's where the mind clarity, the people that get the greatest mind clarity, day one can suck fasting, day two is better, and then day three, a lot of people report like, I feel amazing. Their body is totally feeding off of the fat. And this is the other thing. There's all kinds of stuff where there's just different experts out there. Some experts contain that your body has tons of vitamins and minerals in it, but that just like the fat, it's trapped in these reservoirs. So your body, there's people that say the same thing. All the cholesterol you need, all the vitamins, it's already in you, but it's locked away because we train our bodies to be like, where's my vitamin A? Where's my vitamin A? And in the same way, if you denied it there and you stopped eating for a little while, you're fasting, you have reserves of vitamin A. Now, this is disputed, but I'm opening my mind up to the possibility of like, oh my gosh, maybe that's why people are feeling really good on day 3, day 4. They report this mind clarity and they have water because their body is tapping into these reserves, maybe not just the fat, but it's tapping into other vitamins and cholesterols that are in the body, because cholesterol is key for like some of the the hormones and the testosterone, and maybe also, see, when you eat a lot, and we're eating 3, 4, 5 times a day, that takes a lot of energy and it yo-yos your insulin. So a lot of times we're interfering where, it takes a lot of energy to digest your food when we're constantly eating. So when you eliminate that, your body's running off of fat. If it's tapping into other vitamins, it's tapping into cholesterol. And oh, by the way, you don't have the energy drain of digesting that meal, which is a huge energy drain. You can see where some of the shamans and some of the sages and some of the very spiritual people are like, and some very creative people are like, bro, I'm telling you, you do it, you'd be amazed. But most of us will never do a 72-hour water
I'm
fast.
gonna
Most
do
of
it.
us should.
I'm gonna crush it. Yeah, but I gotta ask you, balance that with the argument. Well, I know that what little I've been learning, because I've been listening to a book called Switch, and it's
Yep.
about autophagy,
Yep.
and so I'm learning all that, and the doctor mentions, I think he's an endocrinologist, but he mentions the Japanese Nobel Prize
And
winner
yep.
who discovered this process. But
Yep.
I balance that with an argument that we've heard before about, oh, that'll slow down your metabolism. Because I would think, just like what you're saying about, unlocking those hidden reserves of nutrients. It's also like your brain is uptaking all those ketones
Well, all
that
right.
your
Again, I'm
organs
not.
are producing.
That's a great question, and I have heard others address it, and probably much more eloquently and scientifically than I'm about to.
Uh huh.
But I'm conjecturing now. I'm
Okay,
conjecturing.
that's cool.
I'm conjecturing. So I'm
That's
merely
cool.
conjecturing.
I'm with you.
But I would say, again, I would just tell you from personal experience, it's preposterous. My metabolism hasn't slowed down. Preposterous. From personal experience, having done intermittent fasting for, a couple years on and off, it's preposterous. And having done intermittent fasting, even with rest, no, it's not at all. In fact, part of the reason that I'm so small now and it's so easy for me, this is the easiest cuts I've ever had to make light featherweight, is the fasting. Fasting has made those weight cuts easier. And when I'm not in season, when I'm not competing, it's not like a bunch of weight rushes on me. No. So I can just say for myself and from others that I've seen and some doctors that I trust, not true. Now the mechanism, say, well, okay, Frank, explain the mechanism, explain why that's not the case, because intuitively to some, you say, Frank, intuitively, if you're not constantly burning that furnace, right? You're not constantly burning that metabolism, that furnace, then it's going to slow down. That's that. So it says. But the one of the problems I have with that too is that when we're constantly eating, you mentioned endocrinologists. Endocrinologists study hormones. right? They study cell signaling and hormones rely on these signals. When you're bombarding yourself with the standard American diet, the SAD diet, and all the sugars and all the carbs and all the chemicals and toxins and glyphosate and antibiotics, bro, you're trashing your signals. So don't sit here and tell me about my metabolism is going to slow down. The reality is that the way that most people are eating, if frequency was supposed to be working, it ain't working for most people. I'm not saying there's not a bodybuilder or somebody else out there who's eating 5-6 meals, but for most people, it's not working. It's not working. Like that experiment of, well, I need to eat 4 meals a day, 5 meals a day, or eat 3 meals a day and then nibble for 2 more meals, and therefore my furnace is working all the time and it's working. It's not. 2/3 or more, roughly 70% of adult Americans are clinically obese or overweight. So that experiment of the bigger plate, more food, furnace is always working. It ain't working for most people. It's not working for most people. I can't explain all the mechanisms. Again, the science on fasting isn't where, even though there's been some science on it, there's a lot more they need to do on it. All this stuff.
Who I would love to hear.
I can tell you anecdotally, it's not true. Your metabolism, your testosterone, your growth hormone. No, my metabolism is pretty dang quick. And everybody says, well, Frank's just made to be skinny. Yeah, I'm not a big. I'll tell you, I got tons of people in my family that are really heavy, tons.
Okay.
And if I let myself go, I probably would be 190, 200 pounds. So I don't want to hear that argument because if Frank's just a skinny guy, it's like, bro, if I let myself go, I could be 190, 200 as well. So I'm the size that I am partly because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, this gets in, if we get past this conversation right here, like a separation and go into the next section of this conversation that we'll have to do next time or whenever we can, Frank, is, not only is like, as I'm fasting, as I've shunted carbohydrates out of my diet, I'm not adding slices of bread, making garlic bread, pizza, all that good stuff. As I've done that, and my body starts to naturally burn through all of my fat stores.
Yeah.
There's something else later on, which is, this is only the first battle. You and I talk in Jits, when we're doing the head and arm choke, we talk about the battle of the elbow. Getting past that and then getting into setting in the choke, just setting it in.
I had one of those battles earlier today. I had one of those. The guy was being annoying, and I finally got past his elbow and I got the choke. I had one of those.
Just getting past the elbow, metaphorically here. To me, the first part is, for me, just like the first part of this is just the first easy part, I will say, is me getting down to what my goal weight is. Which, I was kidding the other day when I sent you a meme. I said, my goal weight is 110. But the real battle, the long-term battle, is not like staying on track with that and keeping that weight up by changing. It's changing my mind and how I see myself. That's like harder. And, I started out this conversation today, just to come to a close. I started out this conversation today saying 20% of this is just knowing. 80% is putting into practice and living it consistently. And, through my own therapy, because I work with therapists, I work with mental health professionals actively. Because I want to self-improve. I want to get better. And I have this wonderful institution called the Veterans Administration Medical Centers. I have that backing me up. And so the therapist gave me something that I'm acting upon now. And it's it's called willingness. Willingness is the ability to endure discomfort in the service of your goals. And to me, that's like key in all this. At first I set up not my goals, but my values. Willingness is
Mm-hmm.
the ability to endure discomfort in the service of your values. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the underlying reasons here of why we have this podcast, that I meet with you regularly, is that I want to share, build a legacy here and service to others, not just for
Mm-hmm.
myself. Like we're doing this just for ourselves. I don't care if we have 0 viewers. In fact, a lot of times we don't have any viewers. I don't care. It's you and I spending time doing this. And what's happening is, after the 20% of getting the knowledge, and I fight my battles, and I'm learning that process of rolling that stone up the mountain and having it roll back on me often, and me figuring out, well, how do I keep it? How do I keep that stone up the mountain, and how do I get it up there
Yeah.
faster and keep it up there for longer? And that's part of this cycle we're in. And someday, yeah, I will die, okay, but the purpose of living is service to others, but it's also to, like what you said before, which is, this is a movie you're living in. This is a narrative, and your problems you have are yours, and the challenges that you have in your life, to make it meaningful, means you need to engage with them, and it's your job in this life to go after them and to
if we're
accomplish them.
not gonna if we're not going to try to bring the best you or the best me to life, if we're not going to do that, I'll be honest, I don't, for whatever end purpose, bring the best you to life so that you can help people, bring the best you to life so for your kids, for your wife, whatever. If we're not going to do that, I don't know what the point of any of this is. I guess I should get some addictions and just hasten my time and exit quicker than, I don't know.
Just burn out.
I feel like self-improvement, and I feel like it's a mandate, and I have to at least die trying. I just feel like it's a mandate. It's a mandate to myself. It's like a spiritual mandate. Like, hey, I have no choice. And that makes me get up, and that makes me trudge through, and that makes me push through. And even, it's a dangling carrot. The dangling carrot is just bring the best you to life for whatever, to serve humanity, to serve your community, whatever. If we don't have that, I don't know, man. Like, this is just hollow. I don't know what the point of any of it is. You got, so at some point, people have to buy into that premise. Bring the best you to life for X, where you can fill in the blank as to whatever that Y is. But if you can't agree to the first half of that, I want to bring the best me to life. I want to constant self-improve.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you for your time today and sharing your knowledge. It's amazing. I'm just over here like a sophomore trying to become a wise fool, and you have spent nearly 4 decades in direct practice of this. One of my key weaknesses in my life has always been, I've gone after that 20%, that knowledge, but I'm not so strong in putting it into action and walking the talk. It's so hard, Frank. It is so hard.
Because you're too smart too. So you have, some of it's anxiety, some of it's confidence, and
fear of failure.
Some of it's you're just too damn smart, where you hunger for too much knowledge, and you're just blip 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 blip. Blip. You love knowledge so much that you don't always commit to, like, the one piece of knowledge that will work, because you're so busy wanting the other 20 pieces, when it's like, bro, this one will serve you better than the other 19 you're going to learn later. It's like you love knowledge so much that you just want so much knowledge all at once that some of that future knowledge might erase or negate the knowledge you have now. Sometimes you have to take the knowledge right now to build the home you need to build right now, and then later you can build the castle later. But you got to stay and stick around and be like, I have the knowledge to build a nice home right now. Build it. But wait, I have new knowledge tomorrow. No, this is the home we agreed to.
I keep chasing it. Yeah.
We can't decide every 2 days or 3 days. Wait, we have better information. We need to build a different house. No. This is the house we said we're going to build. Okay.
No more change orders. No
10
more
years
change
from now,
orders.
we can go buy another house. We can upgrade to another house. But we don't get to keep.
Yeah.
Hey, I just came across a new garage. Put a new garage in. You go to the home builder, and then you drive them crazy.
Yeah, there's all these change
No.
orders I keep putting in.
No.
Yeah, I get it.
That's our problem. That's our problem. Yeah, well, a lot of us have that, by the way. Me too.
Well, the next topic I want to, and I got to spend some time thinking about it, is how do you remake? To me, I've gotten down to 175 in the last 10 years, and I bounced right out of that. And that was, I weighed in it at.
But if you fasted, because a lot of people, the reason it's not sustainable is they're not doing it right. They're not doing it the right ways. They're not even losing weight the right way. Another thing is it's not accompanied by fasting. The sustainability would go up if you could do it the right way with the right foods and really change. And a lot of people do starvation, or they just do they do all the wrong ways to lose weight. But if you did it in the right ways, the right nutrition, lifestyle changes, and fasting, the odds of sustaining it will go up exponentially.
Well, I want to cover that ground with you, because you have a lot of that knowledge. Hey, it's been great talking to you again today. 10 years ago when I was in Brazil, and I was out for a walk with Barbara Gracie, granddaughter of Helio Gracie. She would tell me all the bad things comes through your mouth. That's what Helio said. Something to the effect of, only bad things come through your mouth. And I was like, wow, yeah, people smoke cigarettes, they drink alcohol, they eat the wrong foods. There's a lot of truth to that quote. And Barbara's daughter, Hyla Gracie.
Joel Osteen, I guess, the mega pastor down in Texas, he said, if you got a bad mouth, you're going to have a bad life.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, that's the 4 agreements, right? Be precise with your words. Be careful what you put out there. Yeah. Anyway,
good knowledge.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
You. I gotta go
very helpful for me. This makes me a better teacher. It makes me think about some things. So I really appreciate today's conversation. Very helpful. And again, it's dedicated to my sister-in-law, who's going to be going to the other side, and beautiful woman, Leela Carreri. God bless you, Leela, and my brother Tony.
Yes, sir. Yeah. May she do well on her journey. Well, on that note, I appreciate your time today, sir, and thank you for the dedication. When we live for others, it adds a lot of meaning to our lives. This gives purpose. So that said, I'll see you next week, 2:00 Pacific, 5:00 Eastern. It's the Everyman BJJ podcast. We've got some guests we're working on bringing in, and just syncing up schedules and getting those commitments.
We got to get Jordan on. I saw Jordan the other day. We got to get Jordan on.
Let's do it.
So.
Let's do it. It's
a
good time to catch up with him. All right, Frank.
And
thank
Sapo.
you very much.
Bye,
yeah,
Noah.
Sapo. All right. Take care, sir.